Hello, friends. Welcome to Level Up with Debbie Neal. I am your host. There is nowhere I would rather be than right here, right now with you. This podcast is all about leveling up in all aspects of our lives. Thank you for being here. I am so grateful. I'm excited to be on this journey with you. Together, we are leveling up. You ready? Hello, my Level Up family. You guys, I am extra excited to be here with all of you today. You know, we don't have a lot of guests, but when we do have a guest on here, we're going to give it every single thing that we have to share with you. And I'm very excited about this guest. I checked out her Instagram. I got to know her a little bit. You're going to love every single thing she's going to bring to the table. So today we have on here Natalie Dawson. And I will tell you the very first thing that really intrigued me to want to find out more about this incredible woman was she was a co-founder and president of Cardone Ventures. And so if you guys know me, you follow me, you listen to me, you know the way I feel about Grant Cardone and how I have just been reading his things, watching his things. I love his energy. One of his very first books, Be Obsessed or Be Average, was basically my handbook to come in and build a business that I was just so proud of. I didn't want to be average. I didn't even want to participate in that segment. And so that was very, very intriguing to me. So a little bit about Natalie, and we're going to have some fun here today. And I know that the value that's going to be brought is just more information and inspiration and knowledge and tips for you to level up in every single aspect of your life. So Natalie Dawson is an entrepreneur. Like most of you are, she is a two-time #1 Amazon best-selling author. Her books are Teamwork and Start the Work. She is an expert in developing people and developing scalable teams, which I love. She is a host of a top 1% podcast, Building Millions. She is a member of the exclusive Vogue 100. She is a business and entrepreneurial lifestyle influencer with 800,000 social media followers. She is the co-founder and president of Cardone Ventures alongside Grant Cardone and Brandon Dawson. And Natalie has helped thousands of entrepreneurs grow their companies from 1 million to 50 million plus. And again, Natalie, I'm so excited to have you on our show. And again, a big part of my success journey was reading Grant Cardone's book. And, you know, so often we think we need like these big things. You need just something to light that fire inside of your soul to decide that you want to be different, because I believe we were all born on purpose with a purpose. And so be average or be obsessed or be average. It was literally a holy grail to me. And I don't mean to like compare that to the Bible, but it was a holy business grail to me. And in his book, I do have to say, actually just sparking a memory now, he put his email address in that book. I emailed that man back in 2011 when I did my first keynote. And I told him that like I really wanted to give kudos to him. And I actually sent him, I think, a video of it. And I think there was like a 5-year period that I sent him a bunch of emails. He never wrote me back. But that's okay. I had the email address. It's not even to like put him out there. Maybe he didn't say he'd write me back, but the email address was in there. And he did play such a big role in my success. So let him know how grateful I am. I am super, super grateful.
I will definitely do that. And what I love so much about Be Obsessed or Be Average is I read the book too. I didn't know who Grant or Elena Cardone were. I found them on YouTube and decided that I needed a massive change in my life. So I became a super fan. It's awkward now because we're business partners, but I tell them like I kind of like low-key stalked them, and I just started watching all of their videos and all of their content because I really did feel like this message was not the same message that everybody else was talking about. And this idea that it's okay to be obsessed about something, it's okay. I wasn't finding that in the communities of people that I was hanging out with. And it's not like I was some, bum. Like my parents were medical doctors. I had a lot of great entrepreneurial people around me, but this idea of really being obsessed and that that's your responsibility to have this obsession and to not be average. And it's okay that you might feel bad about yourself, that you haven't accomplished more and that you haven't done more and you don't have statistics that really are impressive that not just to other people, but that don't impress yourself was this subversive idea for me when I stumbled upon Grant and Elena's content almost 7 years ago. And I will definitely tell him that you have had such transformation from his content because I like to remind him of just how special of a person he really is.
Two things you just said that hit me right away. You were watching his things and kind of low key stalking before you were business partners with them. That is the law of association. It's the law of proximity. And that's what people need to realize. Who are you feeding your brain with? Who are you feeding your heart with? What content are you consuming? Every single thing we do matters. So that really hit me. And the second thing that you said that really hit me, we're living in a world today, and I say this all the time, like, when did hard work become unsexy? When did we think, we just want to chill and we want things to come naturally? And people were kind of shying away from the word obsessed. I feel, and our listeners have heard me say this many times, I think the word obsessed is really healthy. I'm obsessed with my life. I'm obsessed with my team. I'm obsessed with our listeners. I'm obsessed with my family that should have come first. I'm obsessed with my children. I'm obsessed with Jesus. Like, I'm obsessed with the things that matter in my life. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. And I believe when you're obsessed about something, that's when you kind of get that passion. And we've all heard that quote, when you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life, because that obsession moves you, it drives you. And so I'm excited. I'm excited. And I just want to go back and forth. We both discussed, you guys know, our listeners know that I'm not a planner, but I was very grateful to know that Natalie wasn't as well. And I kind of knew that before we even spoke because she didn't ask me for the questions beforehand. So we're going to have some fun. And one of the things I'd really love to start with, and I'll just really follow your lead on this because I think it's such an important part of no matter what anybody does, is mastering your mindset. Because I believe our mindset is everything, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't. You're right. You're right. So I'm just going to leave that open for you to touch on any single thing you'd love to around the mindset, because I believe it's everything.
I couldn't agree more with you. When I think about mindset, I really struggled growing up because I was a straight A student and always did the things that I was supposed to do, but I never felt like I was really gaining traction or making movement towards the things that mattered. It was just like checking off these boxes. And I had these dreams of getting my MBA and becoming a lawyer and just somebody who was really, quote, accomplished, but I didn't know what that translated to outside of getting outside validation that I'm accomplished. And so I spent so much time trying to figure out, how do I get the accomplishment? And when I was in my very early 20s, I fell in love with somebody that was the opposite of what I ever thought my life was going to look like. I used to be so judgmental of people who uh, dated somebody who was older than them, people who had somebody that was older than them that made more money than them. I was just like, I am an independent woman. I was a full ride academic scholar. I don't need anybody. Like, I'm smart. And then I fell in love. And I've now been with my husband for over a decade, and I've actually known him since I was very young. And it's the single greatest decision that I've ever made. But as soon as I made that decision, this mindset became, I'm always going to be in his shadow. No one is ever going to take me seriously. I will not be respected. Therefore, why try? And I had to wrestle with that for a couple of years before I really just cracked and figured out, I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm doing it because I have this potential to be able to help people. And how many other women's story is that actually their story? Just because they might not have an age difference, they might have the story that the person that they're with makes more money than them. That's a real dynamic in today's society. And how do you have value? How do you demonstrate value? How do you understand what your worth is despite anybody else around you? And I decided that I really wanted to create my value through things that mattered to me, through building the teams that I've built, through the work that I've had to put in order to be the operator of the businesses that I operate. And so it's a constant game though. This mindset thing, it's not like you just get to check that off the box like, oh, I have a good mindset. It's a constant evolution and a constant reassessing of what I tell myself, who do I want to become, and how do I move from mindset to action to create the life that I want. Because I believe, now that I have some stats behind me, now that I have some like ability to say, hey, you wanted this thing and you went out and created it, once you feel confident in that, all of a sudden you realize how much more you can then go and do. And you continue to have to confront your limiting mindset about why you haven't and why you can't. So it's a beautiful game of life we're playing here.
It is, and you said a couple of things. The mindset, but it's the limiting beliefs, right? And so what happens is, and I see it in my business all the time. The greatest thing about my business is that anybody can do it. But the worst thing about my business is anybody can do it. And so people go, you mentioned like, being a lawyer or, a profession that requires all these credentials, right? You're going to study, you're going to go through school, you're going to pursue that profession then because you've invested so much time and so much money. But when you're an entrepreneur, sometimes that's very different, right? You're starting from ground zero, you're building up, and it is so important to build your mindset every single day because if your belief is I can never make that an amount, or your belief is nobody would ever listen to me or follow me, or my belief is I'm not qualified to do that. We can go through the motions, but our limiting beliefs create our feelings and then we act on our feelings. So if we don't believe we're worthy of making $1 million, you will never take the actions required because your brain will always say, no, 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 don't go through it. You're not enough. You're not enough. So you will always err on the side of safety. And then you'll attract circumstances and people that are supporting your story. Like, see, it didn't work. See, people don't want to follow me, but it's that minding the mind, it's breaking through the limiting beliefs and getting that the mind is attached to the feelings and we attract people on the feelings and your vibe attracts your tribe. Even our connection right here. Like there's always all of these things at work. Like one of my prayers every day is, thank you, God, I am going to be connected with the people that I'm meant to be connected in the world. Now I take bold actions every day, but that doesn't mean they were necessarily you and I being here today, right? You just don't know what that's going to look like, but working on your mindset is so important. So I love that so much because our listeners, when they're listening, they want to level up. They want to be more, they want to become more, and success is all about who we become. Like it's just all about who, and it is just like you said, it never ends. It never ends. So another thing I'd love to talk about, like success starts with being inspired, wanting more, dreaming big, having the vision. And so one of the questions I go to time is like, how do you stay inspired every day? And I answer that question all the time because it's something that has to be done every single day. So if listeners were listening, what can they do on a daily basis? Because inspiration comes from within. Motivation wears off. They could listen to this podcast like, yes, I'm going to go to the top of my profession. And then all of a sudden they get a piece of rejection and they're like, I can't even find my way to the bathroom. They're over. Motivation doesn't last. It's like a bath. But inspiration keeps us going. So just tips around inspiration and why it's so important.
Mm. I think of inspiration as having a tool belt with a variety of different tools in it because there's not one thing for me that inspires me. It's not like I can imagine what life could look like in 20 years from now and every day that helps me. Sometimes that helps me where I'm in this creative space and I want to build the future of what is Natalie doing when she's 20 years older than she is today or 30 years older and what does that impact? Sometimes that inspires me. But a lot of times, what I have to tell myself and remind myself is I have people who are depending on me. And there are people who, there are real ramifications if I don't choose to show up in the way that I know I can show up. And it's in those small little decisions that we make, whether you're going to hit the snooze button, whether or not you're going to respond to the emails, if you're going to prepare the agenda for the meeting. It's these small decisions that we make every single day that really compound and allow us to either say, hey, I should take myself seriously or I shouldn't take myself seriously. And so sometimes I play games with myself and I use these different tools that I have to know what does really move the needle for my drive to get something done. It could be haters, people who say negative things online. I have this little photo album of people who just across my career have said nasty, nasty things about me. And sometimes that's the tool that I need that day. Be like, gonna prove them wrong today. Other times it's really nice messages from clients who say, hey, thanks for putting out this content, or thanks for helping me with the strategy. I was able to grow my business. Sometimes it might look like me talking to somebody who I haven't talked to in a very long time. And it's just an inspiring conversation because it's like, look at how far we've come. Can you believe it? And I don't think of inspiration as something where I can just like check into this place and I can live there. It is what is going to make me move and what is going to create a lot of discomfort in most cases. It's the discomfort that I'm going to have to sit in today and force myself to get up out of my chair, make the call, have the YouTube video get shot, have the uncomfortable conversation. It's those things that, and the uncomfortable ones that actually make me move and create that inspiration. And my last little toolkit in my tool belt is on my desk in all of we have 2 or 3 different offices. We just moved into this brand new office here in Scottsdale, and we moved out of another office. And then we also are headquartered in Florida. So I have 3 desks right now that I'm navigating, but on all 3 of my desks, I have this sticky note, because the sticky note creates inspiration for me every single day. When I look at it, it says R equals P with a question mark. And the concept for me behind that is, does what I'm about to do, the meeting I'm going to have, the podcast I'm going to host, this call that's going to take place, does my reality actually equal my potential today? And if my reality isn't meeting my potential because I pop off on somebody and I respond emotionally, or I don't stay extra hours in order to get something done because I don't want to work any longer. If I'm really reminding myself of that and keeping it front of mind, I get closer to actually having my reality match what my potential really is.
I love that. So I used to have a note on my desk when 19 years ago, when I started my journey as an entrepreneur, I had a why that made me work. And one of my whys was, I have 4 children. I'm so blessed. They're my absolute world. And when I started my entrepreneur journey, Brooke was 6, Tyler was 4. I have twins, Bailey and Ryan, and they were 1.5. And basically, even figuring if they were all 4.0 students and they got merit, college would cost me about $1 million. And I was 36 years old at the time, and I didn't really have a plan for that. I walked away from my corporate job. When I did work, I was the director of training for CVS Pharmacy, and I was home with my kids, and I just started journaling what I wanted my life to look like. P.S. So I started a business, and I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. But I knew for what I wanted to create was not going to be easy, and it was going to take a lot of things. And one of the things that inspired me is I had this note on my desk when I had a bad day, when I didn't feel like picking up the phone, when I didn't feel like doing the do, when I didn't feel like living inside of my commitment and my word. And the note said, what are you willing to do for $1 million? And so when I had a hater, when I got rejected, when I drove 4 hours for a meeting that nobody showed up for, and I drove 4 hours home in the pouring rain, all those things, what are you willing to do for $1 million? And so that inspired me. And so for me, one of the things that inspired me too is every day figuring out how to fall in love with what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, because that for me helped me. So one of the questions we get all the time is, how can I be inspired? What I hope a lot of you heard out of that is, inspiration is an inside job. Motivation is external, but inspiration, those who look on the outside dream, those who look on the inside awaken. That's not a quote by me. I definitely read it somewhere. Don't know where it came from, but I love it. And it's true. You have to figure out what lights your soul on fire. What's going to make you work? What's going to make you think outside the box? And it's that deliberate decision every single day that I don't want to be average, that I'm here for one life. We don't have a dress rehearsal, and you were meant to live a life of significance. But one of the things you just heard Natalie say was like, it's not about being comfortable. Like, you have to be willing to feel uncomfortable. And a lot of times when we're bridging over to that next level, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. And we're so tempted to play small, and we're so tempted to live in our comfort zone, but everything's an exchange. You're going to feel that pain now, or you're going to feel it later. Okay, so I love that. We're going to ping pong a little bit. We're going to talk about discipline. Discipline, if it's your BFF, you can do almost anything with discipline. Discipline is that bridge. And let me tell you something. When I started my business, I had a lot of it. I was an athlete. I was an overachiever. And like my whole life, I was going to do it. I was going to do it. And that's why we don't compare journeys, but this is something you can build every day. You could wake up every single day and say, I'm going to be disciplined. So I'd love to just anything you want to share about discipline, because it's something that everyone can do it, but most people don't.
They don't want to. It's not sexy. It's in all of those moments where you could be watching Netflix, you could be scrolling on TikTok, you could be doing anything with your time. And what are you actually driving that time towards? And it's those moments where it's so much more comfortable to just hang out with your boyfriend or your kids, even your family, and you're convincing yourself that you have to do this thing because you've always done it. But is it actually getting you closer to your goals? I used to really struggle with discipline. That was the thing for me that when I stopped choosing to struggle with discipline, because it's a choice, when I stopped choosing that struggle, my entire life changed. And this was around COVID. So, right around the time that you launched your podcast, I realized that I no longer had any excuses. Like, I was somebody that always would come in to work a little bit late, and I would make up for my lack of discipline with my personality and creating energy and enthusiasm, but I wasn't structured. I wasn't able to give the accountability to the team. And what happens when you're not disciplined is you let everybody else off the hook because you know that you're letting yourself off the hook. So when you start letting everybody else off the hook, things get messy, especially in a business. Things get messy in a family, they get messy everywhere. But in a business, it's really obvious when a business owner does subscribe to discipline because things are organized, processes are created, agendas for meetings are happening, metrics are looked at. It's all the core things of a business function. And so during COVID, I realized I had no excuses because I wasn't able to travel. There wasn't all of this randomity that I had created in my life that was a distraction from discipline. And so during that time, during lockdown, I went to bed every night at 9:30. I stopped telling myself this lie that I'm a night owl. I woke up every single morning at 5:30. I did training every single day. I followed a specific diet. I worked out every single day. And those were the 5 disciplines that for 3 months I held fast to. And all of a sudden, I'm just that person who goes to bed still to this day at 9:30. My phone shuts off, everything just shuts down, and I wake up early and I'm able to answer emails and get things done that I know actually move the needle in my life. But I so resisted discipline and wanted to compensate for it in these other ways that I made sense of, but it really wasn't creating results in my life. And today, I am so proud of who I am because of my discipline. It's not for anything else. I'm not proud of things that other people might think, oh, she should be really proud of that, like cool accomplishment. It has nothing to do with any other accomplishment outside of who I had to become in order to really feel strong about the things that aren't in my life.
I love that. I'm going to tell you why I love that. There's people listening right now that could be like, that's me, because I know personally some incredible leaders that I work with. They have the potential to scale their business 10, 100 times bigger than it is right now, but they're not disciplined with daily habits that in their mind think it has nothing to do with the business. Oh, yes, it does. It absolutely does. We've all heard this thing, how you do anything is how you do everything. And some people are very open to coaching, and some people like, this works for me. I get everything done. I can stay up till 1 a.m. and I get everything done. Or I can get away on 5 hours of sleep, or nobody sees my bed. And I'm like, you're asking me for help. You're asking me for coaching. If you want to scale your business, it starts with these things. And why I'm such a believer of it is for exactly what you said. But I also believe people who don't will only get them to a certain level of success, and then they will hit a lid because they're not going to scale. And so they could start at ground zero and change those core things, because people could be, I don't want to say like organized, messy, unorganized or something like that, right? They could get it all together. They can show up and, just like you said, overcompensate it, maybe in their energy, maybe in their personality, maybe in what they can accomplish in a day. And I also love the fact that people could hear this and be like, this woman's incredibly successful. And a few years ago, she was not the most disciplined human being. And it's as simple as making a change. So I love that. Thank you so much. And so, okay, the next thing, which is like different, but we're going from thing to thing.
I love it. You're so good at this, by the way. You are
Oh,
spectacular at this. I get
thanks.
why your show is successful, and I understand why people listen to you because you really are very talented at
Oh,
hosting a show and really connecting to people. So you're so awesome. Just wanted
thank
to let you know
you.
that.
I love that. And it's so fun having you on here. I love um, other women that are out there just crushing it. in this world. So it makes me super happy. So I'd like to pivot for a minute and talk about urgency. And again, that goes back to Grant Cardone. I have to say, he really instilled a lot of that in me when I started my business, because I was like, I saw what was average, I saw what was typical, I saw the amount of time frame that it took, to do things. Legally, you want to put disclaimers in there. And I'm like, I'm going to come in and crush this. And so I'm going to create urgency. I'm going to create so much urgency that I'm going to figure it out. Like I was figuring it out. And so urgency, I'm 19 years in and I'm urgent. I train on urgency. I lead with urgency. I wake up with urgency. I don't go to bed with urgency. I'm like, when I'm out, I'm out. And so I would just love for you scale businesses, you coach people. Like, what is the importance of urgency in success and in leveling up and really becoming who we're meant to be? When you think of a successful brand that sells online, like Skims, Bombas socks, Gymshark, you think of their amazing product or their social media. But what is often overlooked is the business behind that business that makes selling for customers online simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify because it is home of the number one checkout on the planet. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Bombas uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/level up, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/level up to upgrade your selling today.
I think people don't recognize how much time they add to success in just the way that they lay out their actions and their lack of urgency. Because you could build a $5 million business in 5 years, 15 years, or 50 years. You would eventually get to that $5 million mark. But if you could go from startup or 500,000 to 5 million this year, why not just pull all of that time forward and those actions forward to be able to have that result faster? And so I find that when people don't have urgency, or when I am struggling personally with urgency, it's because I've gotten disconnected from what the target is. And every day it is so easy just by default to just go through the motions. You do what you normally do for breakfast, then you go into meetings, you're fighting fires, you're solving problems, your team members are bringing all sorts of challenges, or maybe your customers are having challenges. So you just get sucked into the minutia, you get sucked into what's happening to handle your life today, and you've totally lost sight of how you're trying to get to where you want to go, because you don't want to stay where you're at. Most people don't, but they act as if they do want to stay where they're at. And so this idea of urgency is putting out there where you're trying to go. I find that's the antidote. If I'm going to tell my team, hey, we're going to go, and we've done this every single year since we started this business 6 years ago, we have shared with our entire company and we share with all of our clients what our revenue growth targets are for that year. Because once I put it out there where we're going, it raises the stakes for me to actually do what's required to get there. And if you want to hide your goals, or you want to hide where you're going or who you want to become, you're not going to have that urgency, because you're not going to be embarrassed. No one's going to know, no one's going to care. But when you put out massive goals, it forces you to have urgency, because a clock is ticking and you have to eventually get there. And there's a possibility that you never do get there. It's very real that you don't grow your business, that you don't get the abs that you want, that you don't have whatever life that you want, because you haven't been able to create that up until this point. So what does force urgency? Well, embarrassment forces urgency. If you're going to do a bikini competition, all of a sudden the urgency is going to be like, how do I start eating broccoli, rice, and chicken and hitting the gym because I have to do this bikini competition? I've never done one of those. I'm very impressed by people who do, but I think it's such an interesting thing to really think about. How do you put something in the future that is so public that it would be embarrassing to show up unprepared or not actually hitting the target, as a mechanism to create urgency? Because as a business owner, it's fictitious. You make it all up. You set targets based off of what you think you can have, and therefore you act in a way that tends to slow things down instead of taking much faster actions, making a little bit of a fool of yourself potentially early on, but getting through that discomfort to be able to actually hit the target.
I love it. And you said a couple things. I mean, everything you said was just awesome, but I love how you wake up every single month and you share with your team or year exactly what the targets are. You guys have heard me say this over and over again. One of the greatest qualities of the greatest coaches in the world is they have the ability to enroll an entire team towards one common goal. If your goal is to lead and to raise the bar, where are you leading your team? I'm not a big football fan. I like, watch it just because I like the food that's there. It's social. My boys played football, but I can guarantee you the teams that went to the Super Bowl from the very first day of the season, they looked their players in the face and said, "We are going all the way. We are winning the Super Bowl." And that's why it's so important to have a goal. When we don't have a goal, we wander, we go through the motions, and instead of leading with urgency, we're kind of leading a brownie troop. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Girl Scouts or brownies. It was like, "Hey, I'm here. What can we do? Do you want to make crafts? Let's grow." It's like urgency is the key. And I know for me, when I started my business, I set really big goals. I was like, "Tell me, I want to break a record. Tell me what the goal is to achieve this." And I told my team every single day we were going to do it. And they believed me because I believed in the end game. And we ended up meeting it because we created urgency, and then every single person on my team knew the goal and they knew the deadline. Deadlines drive performance. And so when you can create urgency inside of your heart and soul and the way you lead, I tell you, friends, the game changes. And one other thing, like I know you're my guest, but I always just keep thinking of things because you said it. You said whether you want to hit 50 million in a month, 5 years, 50 years, whatever the 5 million, that was the way I felt too. Sometimes people look at my journey and like, "How did you do that in that time frame?" I'm like, "Well, I saw that average do it in 5 years." And so again, you can go to earnings statement, but we did it in just over 5 months, and I was like, "It's going to hurt anyway." It hurt so much less in less time because I actually didn't feel the attrition. I didn't even hear the haters and the doubters because I had so much wind flapping in my ears from just running and creating this energy and fire. And then after we hit it, it was like, what's the next goal? Because if you don't have a next goal and you're not urgent to get it, we're always in motion. We're either going forward or we're going backwards. So if you're only urgent for a period of time and then you've arrived, you're on a slippery slope going backwards. So I love how you feel about urgency because I love urgency. And again, goes back to the be obsessed to be average. I could actually like narrate that whole book. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So I'd love to talk about actions and words. I'd love to talk about actions and words because, you see people on New Year's, they declare, they've got big goals for the year. They've got all of these things. They're selling the dream, but a lot of times we're living a nightmare because we can't get out of our own way and our actions and our words are not in alignment. So I'd love to just anything you have to add on that because there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast. They have big goals, whether that's, a promotion or an income or a size of their team. But the words are one thing, but it's taking bold, courageous actions every single day to actually live inside of your word.
Yeah, I find that when people actually remove something from their lives, it raises their ability to take action on the new thing that they're trying to add. Because right now, if you already have a full cup and you're trying to put more into it, it's already full. There's no other room for something new. And so you fail because you're trying to add something on top of something that's already full. But if you took the opposite approach and said, okay, what am I willing to give up that I like, that is so enjoyable for me, that I currently make sense of, that is a faster route to find the time to take the actions that you need to take that your words are saying. And so many different points in my life, it's been different things. I'm just going to tell you, I love Real Housewives, all of the franchises. I love a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I love a Real Housewives of New York. Like, it's just trashy television that has followed me since I was younger, and something that still today, if I have a moment, like I would love to catch up on what's happening with all of these crazy ladies across the country. But I realized, hey, instead of being able to use that 45 minutes or that hour to build my goals and to create my future, I'm just stuck, and I feel very stuck, and I need to reallocate that. So it's not about I'm going to go like work out more. It's actually, hey, what am I willing to give up? And you don't have to give it up forever. And again, I've gone through different cycles, but when you're not getting closer to where you want to go, you really do have to take a hard look at what you're willing to give up. And for me, a lot of that is not just watching television, but it's like relationships. Do I have friends in my life who are not supporting me, but I feel like I have to? I feel like I'm committed to hanging out with them on a Friday night, or to going and doing this group activity where I feel crappy about myself the whole time and afterwards. It's not getting me closer to where I want to go, but it's something that I just make sense of. Can that even be family? Sometimes people's families get in the way of them putting in the time that they want to put in to whatever the goal is. And so for me, when I start talking to people about what is happening with their lack of alignment with words and actions, instead of just adding something new, I really take a hard look at their calendar. I'm like, what are we willing to give up? Because when you're willing to give that thing up, all of a sudden you now have time, and you're going to set yourself up for a greater chance of success with the new thing because you've already made space for this new thing.
I love that. I love it. Because so many times, whenever I'm even coaching someone, I don't necessarily listen to what they say. I watch their actions, because our words and our actions are not always in alignment. And that's where that whole disconnect happens. And if we could actually live inside of our word, think of all the amazing things that we could create. All right, I'll just give you a couple of more questions because I know you've got a lot of great things to do today. So I'd love one just to talk about some of the daily habits of people in life to be in the top 1%, and then there's the top 1%, and then there's the top, like, I know when I grew to the top 1%, I'm like, okay, so now there's a 1% of the 1%. Now I want to be a 1% of the 1%. What do I need to do to get to the 1% of the 1%? Because we're on this evolution of personal growth, discovery, and becoming more. But it does start with the habits that we do on a consistent. You show me your habits, I'm going to show you your level of success. So what are some habits? I've done a lot of episodes on habits. So I love, because I know whatever you're going to say is going to reinforce what they've already heard. Like, people search for that secret sauce and it's always the same answers.
For me, maybe some slightly different answers, but still in alignment with likely what you share and other people who have shared or who've been on your podcast have shared. I need to make the most important thing something that I'm looking at as the first thing. So one of the habits in our business, we had 0 employees 6 years ago. Today we have over 300 team members across the country. And the reason that business is as successful as it is we start every single morning sharing the wins from the day before and actually looking at targets to actuals. This is our revenue we look at. This is our cash collected we look at. This is the amount of leads we look at. This is the amount of closes and actual deals that we did. Every core metric of the business starts with our entire company on a daily Alti meeting, going through those numbers and then reorganizing our days based off of what worked. Okay, great. How do we go do more of that? What hit the target but could be improved? Maybe we'll touch on that. But if there's something that's not working, how are we going to go fix that? And the habit of actually looking at and measuring the things that matter in a business and reorganizing. Same with anybody who is trying to have a fitness goal or trying to have an income related goal. You have to actually look at the things that matter and reorganize and reprioritize how you are spending your time in order to get there. So that is a habit that is baked into our business. And I would be remiss without saying my habit of waking up at 5:30 in the morning is the thing that sets me up for success every single day. And some people can sleep in later. And I know that, it's not a one size fits all and you're not going to be successful just by waking up at 5:30. It's not some magical pill. But for me, it is that discipline that I can continue to trust myself. I can have confidence in myself. I can believe in myself because I do something that I don't want to do literally every single day.
So if you were to give our listeners, I'll let this be the final thing, unless there's something else you want to share, just your top 3 tips to level up in life. Whatever it is they do, just top 3 tips to level up.
My top 3 tips, there's steps. So the first one would be get really clear on who you want to be in 5 years from now. Like, really clear. I don't care if it's going to Pinterest or watching something or finding inspiration somewhere. You have to be clear on who that person is, who they're spending time with, how much income they have, what the family situation looks like, friends, where you're living, all of those things. You have to have a picture, a clear picture of what the target is in 5 years from now. And then you're working your way back to say, what do I actually have to do today? And what is the hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours that I can carve out of today in order to only take actions for me to get there. And then the third piece of that is measuring if those actions over time are getting you closer to where you want to be. Because if you are clear on where you want to go and you do make the time today to get there and you're measuring, are they effective or are they not effective, so that then I can go change up what's happening in step 2, that is how you become successful. That is how you get to the next level. And when you're at the next level, you're going to do that same thing all over again, because now it's a new picture and it's a new set of time and skills and things you have to learn in order to get where you're trying to go. And you have to measure, is it working or is it not working? Right now we're in the process of launching a equity fund, and this is our first equity fund that our business is launching into. This is the first time we're raising $100 million. We've used all of the capital to grow our business based off of our own balance sheet. The money, the revenue that we generate and the profit we create, we actually invest in businesses. We have a great track record, but all of a sudden, if I'm taking somebody else's money, there's a whole new set of expectations. And so every day, despite what I'm doing, I'm reading books to understand, who does Natalie need to be? What type of confidence do investors need to have in me and the knowledge that I have in this new area? And so the game never stops if you continue to think about, man, I want to create a business, or I want to be able to have a team underneath me, or I want to be able to launch this new product or start an equity fund. Whatever that is, that cycle in order to level up stays the same.
I love those answers. And I love everything you said, but it's like, even after you do it, what's your next set? What's your next 5 years? I remember when I started my business, I wrote down top 20 reasons why I was doing it. And a lot of people can maybe come up with 5, 6, 7, 10, but you really have to push yourself for 20, or at least I did at the time. And so wrote down those 20 things, but it had to be reevaluated, because once you create those 20 things in your life, whatever it looks like, now what? It's really easy to get comfortable. So it's now creating the next 20 things that you want to create in your life, and who do you need to become? In fact, even when I set goals for this year, I got myself really excited and also really scared, because I'm like, I'm not that Debbie Neal yet, but I will become her in the process. I will become her in the process. And very often we wait till we're that person. We wait till we're Natalie. We wait till we're that Debbie, but we become that person stretching for that next level. So thank you so much for being on here today. I feel very grateful that your team reached out for you to be on this podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed having you on here today as a guest, and I would love our listeners to know where they can find you so they can learn from you and they can follow you. So if you could share that with everybody, that would be amazing.
The best place is Natalie Dawson on YouTube. I put a lot of content out there, and I think that's where like the bulk of people who want to learn something, they go to YouTube. Instagram is cool for short form, little educational pieces, but I'm a teacher at heart, and all of that content is on YouTube.
Okay. Well, Natalie, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.